Hiya! Welcome to this, my 95th episode of VideoFuzzy. I'm your host, Cherry J. Aman, sifting my basket of media memories, and in this very theatrically themed installment titled Dead for Ducat, I talk about Hamlet by William Shakespeare, Hamlet 2, most decidedly not by William Shakespeare. I'm joined by actors who played Hamlet and Ophelia, and what a remark! I find myself once again preoccupied with history. Welcome to the show!
He doesn't have it on video, does he? We'll find out together on VideoFuzzy.
Yep, a theater company in town here, True North Theater, is producing Edward Albee's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and I shall once again be shrugging into the cable knit cardigan that, should memory serve, provides little by way of armor against the slings and arrows of outrageous wife. I took on this role in easily among my favorite shows in Minot back in 2011. Per our rehearsal process, I could wish that had been a lot more recently. A lot of the lines do favor me with a familiar ring. I just fight to recall when they all happen and what they all are, since we're using a revised script from the one I learned, and with a completely different cast. All the same, as I say clearly enough in Act 1, I'm really looking forward to this. Ticket prices and showtimes are listed at True North's website and Facebook pages, and I'll include those links in my show notes. Party, party, party.
And now, VideoFuzzy presents Fuzzy Feature.
For my Fuzzy Feature this time, I've had, as I mentioned, a lot of theater going on just at this exact moment. Along with auditions and rehearsals, I made the Capitol Shakespeare production of Hamlet this summer at Bismarck, and in my current collection, archived the PBS Great Performances 2023 production of Hamlet, Disc X526. I felt this was the best possible moment to explore a deep cut I'd mentioned back in episode 89, Forever Freestyle, that is, the appearance of the 2008 production of Hamlet 2 on discs 1474 and 1480, starring Steve Coogan, Catherine Keener, David Arquette. You know, it really drops off a lot after Steve Coogan. Coogan started as Tucson, Arizona drama teacher Dana Marsh, and Hamlet 2 opens on a few small appearances he made here and there in infomercials and afternoon cable adventures. He marries a sexy siren like Catherine Keener as Bree. Bree is head over heels in disinterest with Dana, but is trying to have kids with him. Act 2 opens with him at a Mexican restaurant, and nope, I have no idea how they pay for anything. He teaches high school extracurricular basically for free, and she's apparently taken a break from dealing drugs. Oh, they did bring in David Arquette as Gary, a person in the room who's apparently helping them make rent. Dana has a couple students who are devoted to him through his breathtaking copyright violations, adapting hit movies for the stage, and his constant war with the high school newspaper, the Tatler's drama critic. But this year, the drama class is stuffed full of rowdy students, many of them Hispanic, because this year the school cut all extracurriculars except drama, which he's later told was an oversight anyway. If they'd noticed the school even had a drama club, they absolutely would have cancelled that too. Well, the movie parallel Dana draws is Michelle Pfeiffer in Dangerous Minds. Probably because he'd never managed the math and stand and deliver. He needs to inspire these students, which is weird, because how much actual time does drama take up in this school, where it has no dedicated meeting space and has to cram into the gym or the cafeteria? He encounters actress Elizabeth Shue working as a nurse at a fertility clinic and invites her to speak to his drama students, who do not know who she is. So far, this doesn't sound much like Hamlet, or a sequel, so your confusion is valid. When the school informs him that the drama club's next play will be its last, he takes the high school drama critic's advice? Is advice really the right word? Because he could literally have said anything and Dana was going to hear, write that time-travel-y sequel to Hamlet you've been kicking around. They've been workshopping some story ideas as a class, and one student, J.J. Soria as bad boy Octavio, has been emerging in a solid acting competition to Skylar Aston and Phoebe Stroll as teachers' pets Rand and Epiphany. Dana identifies Octavio as the talent he needs to center his play, a title character, in fact. Octavio will play Hamlet, but post-therapy and with access to Einstein and a time machine to save the lives of Gertrude and Ophelia. Time Machine could also have taken him back to save his dad from being poisoned when he was napping in that orchard, and whole play could have been avoided, but no matter. As Octavio's dad points out, Dana's already removing the tragedy from the world's greatest tragedy, and refuses to let Octavio participate. But Leslie Knope is there from the ACLU and points out the permission slip was already signed, and there's no provision for takesies backsies. Octavio plays Hamlet, stops Gertrude from drinking the poison, has a flying sword fight ending in a truce with Rand as Laertes, and gives Epiphany mouth-to-mouth and saves her from drowning. Tragedy's averted. But the school is trying to get the show shut down anyway because the B-plot of Hamlet 2, that is, Hamlet 2 the play, not Hamlet 2 the movie. Hamlet 2 the movie is made entirely out of B-plot. Dana has written himself a little part. He's appearing as sexy Jesus. Clearly offensive. Lots of people are demanding it to be shut down, but the argument is that if Christ appeared today, he'd need to market himself to gain the platform he needed. A little derivative. I mean, Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice sort of explored that already in this obscure little art house piece, Jesus Christ Superstar. Anyway, if we thought Hamlet was struggling with daddy issues, Jesus also shows up and has an encounter session with God and ends up forgiving God, which lets him forgive everyone. While the performance is massive, grown way beyond itself with ambitious arena staging, blowed-up meth lab pyrotechnics, breathtakingly unsafe wire work, a fleet of lowriders, and the kind of cathartic, outsized, over-the-top writing one might expect from a washed-up, self-involved, off-the-wagon former actor-turned-high school drama teacher working through his pregnant wife, leaving him with their lodger and father of their child, the school serving him with a cease-and-desist order on his life's work, and his prized students betraying his trust. What is one even to do but mount the stage in your embattled masterwork dressed as Einstein and belt out your demure little high school musical opening number called Rape to the Face? Yeah, the show closed immediately, but it did run, and because of all the publicity that loud, massive, and perfectly appropriate opposition to it generated, Dana's fame and notoriety got him the financial backing he needed, and Hamlet 2, the follow-on sequel, far as I know, no one was asking for it, both the greatest tragedy ever written and the greatest story ever told, borrowing heavily as it very well might from Grease, Jesus Christ Superstar, and weirdly enough, Star Wars, opened to sellout crowds on Broadway, and were sung out by ABC with The Look of Love and the Ralph Sauls Experiences, Gay as the Day is Long. See, I guess I don't know exactly what I was expecting from a show called Hamlet 2, where the cold open is clips from infomercials and Xena, and includes Steve Coogan roller skating through Tucson in a caftan robe, then moonwalking on water is rock me, sexy Jesus. If Hamlet 1, produced a mere 400 years earlier, was potentially informed by Shakespeare's travels on the continent or the harrowing loss of his young son, Hamlet, a few years before, it's much more somber and textured production. I mean, for one thing, a father contemplating the death of his son writes of his son contemplating the death of his father while exploring themes of death, justice, retribution, and madness. It doesn't line up perfectly with a high school drama teacher strung out on roller skates and peach schnapps clinging to a safety cage in a liquor store, and the line, "I am Nicolas Cage in a cage," desperately seeking to Elizabeth shoehorn in references to such works as Adventures in Babysitting and Leaving Las Vegas, which opened the door all the wider for Nicolas Cage references. Time can only tell if Hamlet 3 will ever cross our screens, or however we're watching photo-generated images ported directly into our visual cortex paired to oral hallucinations, Amazon Neuralinks, or however we're telling each other stories of the 25th century. For one thing, the one show had very little to do with the other. I tried to explore whether it even held structurally, but despite a voiceover which could perhaps be analogous to exposition in the style of Hamlet's father, or title cards which broke the story into 5 distinct acts, there's also the presence of a play within a play, and I guess you could make the argument that both productions concentrated the bulk of their action to the finale. The title this time is from Hamlet, or Hamlet 1 for clarity, the scene in the Queen's chamber where Hamlet perceives someone is behind a tapestry spying on him, his mother Gertrude, and strikes, thinking it is perhaps his corrupt uncle Claudius, but finding it is in fact Polonius, the king's friend and father of his erstwhile beloved Ophelia. "Dead! Dead for a ducat!" he cries out, laying odds, and the second half of our drama is on the road. I had, as I mentioned, a couple recent views of that original production. The one, credited as a free Shakespeare in the Park production, performed at the Delacorte Theatre stage in Central Park and set in Elsinore, Georgia. The tones set by a torn Abrams for Governor sign at stage left, centered on a close harmony spiritual son. King's grand funeral procession with military honors outside a house smashed by circumstance and a couple frantically working to smooth over and put the best face on the obvious destruction. Adolf Blakeson Wood, as himself, Hamlet, enters a household order to cut short its mourning by fiat, arriving in time to see his mother, Gertrude, played by Lorraine Toussaint, join John Douglas Thompson as his uncle Claudius in marriage, in the song of Soleil Pfeiffer as his own beloved Ophelia. No matter what path I take, it leads to you. You can doubt that the stars are fire. You can doubt that the planets move. You can call the truth a liar, but don't doubt that I love you. And told to be other than aggrieved. Hamlet, young and impetuous, rejects this directive, but is enough in his own counsel that, as evidence, spectral to be sure and otherwise largely circumstantial, delivered in the voice of Samuel L. Jackson, points to his father's death as foul play, that it may just be telling him what he wants to hear, even when he overhears his uncle's confession post that conscious pricking stage production, The Mousetrap. Oh, my offense is rank. Spells high heaven. It seems to me that would be the time to avenge his death, but his indecision drags on, costs so many others their lives, including Mitchell Winter and Brandon Gill as its erstwhile friends Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, Daniel Pierce channeling Mark Twain a bit, presenting Hamlet's intended father-in-law Polonius, mentioned Ophelia up there, and Nick Ruberg as his brother Laertes, and Hambone's mother Gertrude, before, now in the final moments of the play, Claudius himself. Claudius in his chamber knows his soul is foul with sin, but Hamlet knows church teaching that his shriven soul flies at death to heaven. Of course, he'd also be dead, which by succession would step Hamlet back into his rightful kingship, and his father thus avenged. He could be about the matter of restoring order and the rule of law through the kingdom and in his own heart and mind. Sure, as Claudius himself reasoned, he can't truly be repentant of his brother's death while he still enjoys the usurpant office that foul crime bestowed on him, so likely they'd be held face ain't so. But no, failing that, Hamlet's deterministically a tragedy. Events set these characters unswervingly upon unalterable paths of destruction. Was Ophelia too invested in her imagined fate? When the news of the death of Hamlet's father reached her, she imagined she was the delivery of a dowry from becoming Denmark's queen. Then the queen married Claudius, so there went that idea. Not to mention when Hamlet returned, he was being so weird and distant. And, I mean, from his perspective, was Hamlet returning to Denmark as its king only to be so bald-facedly passed over in favor of his, as it turns out, treacherous uncle Claudius, so confessed in his hearing and in ours. Well, I had a chance to sit down with a pair of actors who have had recent occasion to explore these stories for themselves and, from what I understand, record-shattering audiences, and I'd like to share their thoughts here and now, starting with Derek Pich and followed by Schatzy Eichmann, who played Hamlet and Ophelia, respectively, in this summer's Capitol Shakespeare production of Hamlet. Derek, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Derek Pich. I have been a board member for Capitol Shakespeare since the end of last year. 2023. I am their kind of in-home set builder, props builder when I can get to it, and if not, our artistic director, Erin Weichel, helps me with that, and she's a huge help. I played Hamlet this last summer, and I've done, I think, 15 shows with them, including Hamlet.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I know you were Mr. Ford, Mr. Brooke for Merry Wives a couple of years ago, and 15 years on stage or stage manager. I
stage managed one of their winter shows, Barefoot in the Park, and I was also assistant director and set builder for that as well, as long also understudy for the lead to help out just in case, because people are concerned about getting sick and stuff.
And winter, I mean.
And we only, and unlike a lot of other companies, we only have one weekend of performances, so it's good to have that covered just in case. Other than that, I've not directed anything directly, other than a student-written show when a friend of mine was in college for a 24-hour festival we did. That was kind of fun. Otherwise, I've been in everything from Romeo and Juliet was my first show with them, I believe in 2012 or 11. I was Tybalt in that, and then I was in Richard III as a couple supporting characters, and we did a Scottish play, and I was Banquo in that, so essentially Macker's Horatio type character. And just other bit parts over the years. I was Armado last year for Love's Labor's Lost. Fun Spanish character, and Ford and Merry Wives, and I've done a smattering of types of roles. I've done a few of the winter shows on stage as well, but generally I like to just help out backstage with set moves, or when I was a stage manager and ADing for Barefoot. That was a really eye-opening experience.
Well, in that case, you were able to do the whole backstage thing.
Yeah, so I was backstage the whole time for that.
Well, I was intrigued by being able to watch your Merry Wives, because you played Brooke with you had a distinct voice for him, and then when you were prepping Hamlet, and this was something I noticed, the character from the beginning of the show determines that the only way he's going to find out what's going on is if he can play as mad, if he can mask madness. And occasionally it's really clear, at least in the text, when he is interacting with Polonius, when he's interacting with Claudius, as I'm being my mad character. It's kind of a cue to the audience. And I guess that one of the questions I had about that while you were putting this together was it always clear which part Hamlet was pretending he was performing for an audience?
The director and I talked a lot about that, and we had kind of settled somewhere in the middle where we don't necessarily want the audience to be able to tell all the time if it's genuine madness and he's just going off, or if it's the play madness that he's pretending this antic disposition, as he calls it.
Yeah.
And I had played a lot with that. Where we started was nowhere near where we ended with each of those types of interactions. My interaction with Polonius started way more, I'm messing with you, and I had done some type of voice affectation that the director had mentioned, and he said, don't do that. I want it to be your voice. I want it to be less clear when you're doing it on purpose or not. And so I had to bring it back down and deliver most of my crazy lines as straight as possible so that you couldn't really tell all the time.
Well, that was something I did notice, because even though there was I think one of the ways it stood out was when you were Rosencrantz and Guildenstern saying, you were approaching them in your mad voice, but also you're Prince of Denmark. They're interacting with you as a royal, as a person.
Yeah, and that was a thing we always had, was levels in the hierarchy of civilization kind of thing. There's royalty, and then there's the clergy, and then there's everyone else kind of thing. And they're kind of in between the clergy and everyone else because they're friends with me, but with Hamlet. Mm-hmm. But also, Hamlet is still royalty. They could get their head struck off at any point. And so that they had to play a lot with that and try to be like, I can't be too aggressive with him, because if I make him too mad, especially when he's seemingly insane, I could die at any moment, and I don't want to do that too much or push it too far. Mm-hmm. And I tried to play a little more genuine madness with them, where, especially right away, there's a scene, you were kind of on the stage left side, but there's a part where I find Rosencrantz's medallion that Claudius had given them as a sign of working for him. Mm-hmm. It's like, were you not sent for? And the walls kind of fall down there, and everything after that's pretty genuine with them, but it's just easy to get emotional when you feel that level of betrayal from your friends.
Exactly. Because that was another part of it, was Claudius was just about aiming every sharp instrument in the kingdom at you. It's like, you guys, take him out on the way home, or hey, Laertes, dip this, and it's like just about
the absolute just duplicity of Claudius being this, especially at the beginning of the show when he's like very kind, like, oh, think of us like your father, and you are our son, you're next in line for the throne, and yada, yada, yada.
It's like I was next in line for the throne. What is this? Anyone who marries mom is king now?
And I don't know if I don't know how royalty worked in Denmark at the time, or if there's some type of, because Hamlet does say something about, hopped between the elections and my hopes. Yeah. So I think there's some type of slight democratic process there, and I think Claudius weaseled his way in to being able to marry and then become king easier.
Well, if Gertrude acknowledges or hasty.
Yeah, like it's like, we just kind of decided this right now, and I could only wonder why my son is so mad about that.
Yeah.
It's like, and clearly you guys haven't had the best relationship before opening of curtain, so... Not shocked the kid's upset.
Well, that was the other thing. I mean, it's like, hey, why aren't you okay with everything that's going on? Well, I mean, even without CSI Elsinore with the reveal of his father saying, "Hey, I was murdered.
Yeah.
Avenge my death." Well, get on with it.
Yeah.
On your bike.
Yeah, it's kind of just dropped in his lap, and then that was something we had talked about early on was, I don't know, me and the director had decided that I don't know anybody that would meet their dead father's ghost, and he just drops this lore bomb on him about what happened, but leading up to his death, when it seemingly was just, he died all of a sudden. And would not meet that ghost and come out unchanged, and just be like, oh yeah. Well, okay. There's Mufasa. Let's continue. Like that, which is why I kind of have a breakdown at the end of that scene before I continue with the rest of.
Because it's not just like being able to get maybe closure because this happened while you were gone. It's like, oh my God, my dad died, and it's very sad. But it's even worse because now is he real? Everybody else seems to be seeing him. It's not just my own head telling me, hey, Claudius did something.
Yeah, and there's several lines where Hamlet's saying something along the lines that, yeah, maybe this is the devil just like tempting me to do something dumb. And it's not actually my dad's ghost, and that's why he does a play within a play.
Which seems to nail it off for him.
Yeah, and then he says as much a few times, because there's a line about if my uncle's unocculted guilt does not unkennel itself within one speech, it is a damned ghost we have seen. Like, if he doesn't show some type of reaction based on the lines I've written and it made the players add to the show, because it basically is exactly how Hamlet Sr. describes his own murder. If he doesn't react to that, then it's the devil and we're just going to ignore it. But if not, if he does react to it, I got some stuff I got to do to figure this out and avenge my father because he told me as much. Now it's proven that it is my father and not the devil.
Yep. And he for sure reacted. I mean, you couldn't have gotten a clearer indication. And of course, Claudius is sitting there wrestling with that as well. But, I mean, okay, Hamlet doesn't want to, you gotta kill him while he's shriveled there, but it's like, okay, but he'd still be dead.
Yeah, and there's a lot of critiques about Hamlet that is a story about patricide or regicide or 4 acts of putting it off. Mm-hmm. Just avoiding it, procrastinating of regicide. And
which where's the lesson there? I mean, like, how many more people died because
he took his time?
And
he could have figured out a way to kill Claudius, like right after he got it confirmed.
Claudius had a few different ways of killing you, and it's like,
yeah, and they both were just trying to play chess, not checkers, I think, and it gets the better of both of them. And Hamlet does have a few good points at times where there's a scene where he's right behind Claudius while Claudius is praying in the church. And Hamlet debates it and doesn't want to do it, but wants to kill him right there. He's not paying attention. He's praying. But is it right if I kill him while he's praying and he's purging his soul and he'll go to heaven? no, that's not what I want. That's not what my dad wants. My dad's rotten in hell. He told me as much. He's just suffering every day. I got to make this guy do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's he goes very back and forth in there where now I'll do it. No, I won't. Now I'll do it. No, I won't. And there's something to be said there where he wants to make sure that it is a true vengeance scenario of avenging of his father and not just revenge for the sake of revenge. And he'd be knocked off the table, but he'd still get an afterlife and be all happy. I don't want that. I want him to suffer like my dad suffered because he killed my dad, and I don't.
It makes sense. Of course, the Christian lore has the Hamlet's father as a witness against Claudius for the throne of judgment. So it's kind of maybe it would all work out the way it's supposed to anyway, but...
Yeah, because, I guess the point I was trying to get to was, Hamlet Sr. makes a point to state that all my crimes were brought blown upon my head because he never got a chance to go to confession or repent in any way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm by no means religious, but I do understand how that works in the Christian mindset and in other religions, theologies.
Shakespeare was really exploring this anyway, because when Ophelia dies, and we really need to talk about her, can't be laid in consecrated ground because she killed herself. So Shakespeare seems to be exploring the whole, apart from just this
palace intrigue,
there's a spiritual side that he wants, the commentary that he's taking on in crafting this play.
And I don't know if it's a critique or appreciation or just a case study of the Church of England, I believe was still a thing at the time, 400 years ago.
Oh yeah.
So maybe it might be, I think it's more so just a commentary on that, and also a way to justify these characters' actions as you're writing. Like I said, Hamlet goes back and forth and procrastinates, partially because of that religious thought process. And although it takes place in Denmark, Shakespeare would probably write it through the lens of whatever his church is. He does that a lot with other shows.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He'd be talking about what was going on.
A social commentary. And there's several lines in Hamlet in particular where he's poking fun at the audience. Hamlet talks about the groundlings a few times. And how, the audience isn't capable of anything but inexplicable dumb shows and noise. And he's just straight up being a jerk to the people of England who would be attending these shows. And I think it's just a lot of really interesting societal and political commentary that he likes doing in all of his stuff. Because even his historical ones aren't totally accurate to history and things like that, but he does have a very interesting thing to say with all of them.
Yeah.
And the Ophelia of it all, it's kind of almost portrayed that she's one of the only pure souls in the show, normally.
Kinda.
Her only mistake was falling in love with the young Dane, and that kind of just bit her in the end. Because the Dane ends up killing her dad, and it's not intentional, but it happened, and a lot of that's to do with Hamlet's procrastination in general. If he would have nipped this in the bud sooner, we wouldn't have got here.
Well, it's all goodness, if there is a trespass that Polonius makes, it is that let us overhear, let us sneak, let us spy on what's going on. The king's proconsul is very, he wants to get himself in situations where he can overhear and oversee, so he can have knowledge that other people don't have. But this really gets him in trouble when he, how often is he hiding in Gertrude's bedroom?
Yeah, he does a lot of weird stuff, and it's all one of those things where I've always taken it as he's doing whatever he can to make sure that he benefits from his buddy's rise to power, kind of thing. And I would say he's very guilty of spying on people a lot, espionage. But he's also very guilty with his own daughter, because he pushes her to do things. He pushes Ophelia to interact with Hamlet or not interact with Hamlet. He kind of manipulates her around. And there's a scene where Hamlet is talking madly with Polonius, he says, Polonius asks, "Do you know me, sir?" And he says, "Excellent, well, you are a fishmonger." And it sounds like a funny line, especially nowadays in our vernacular, that it's about, he sells fish. And, like, clearly Hamlet's crazy because he's saying he sells fish. But back then, it was a slang term that meant pimp. Mm-hmm. So he's accusing Polonius of pimping out his daughter for his own benefit. Because if we keep Hamlet happy, then we don't have to worry about anything happening to Claudius, kind of thing. So Polonius is just a selfish guy, I think. He's always vying for more power and making a lot of mistakes along the way and doing some very shady things the whole time. And the Gertrude's closet of it all, which is an interesting thing to be doing. But yeah, he's guilty of a lot of things, and I think he's just overtaken by his own loyalty to his friend Claudius, and that he's just willing to do whatever he can to make that guy happy so he can better himself in society, or whatever he's trying to do, really. I haven't studied Polonius a whole lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, yeah, as characters go, it's kind of, I mean, and also, that mirrors, Hamlet sending, Ophelia to a nunnery. The vernacular of the time would potentially, refer to a brothel.
Yeah, and and I looked at each line individually as I was going about it for my interpretation of Hamlet. And I had written in my script a note next to a lot of the lines in the Ophelia scene. I had said, if I can't have her, ... Mm-hmm. And I had to figure out if Hamlet means literally go to a nunnery so I know you'll be pure and safe, mm-hmm. or if it is go to a brothel. And I played it off, or at least I tried to play it off, that it is a literal nunnery, mm-hmm. that he's telling her to go be safe somewhere. Okay. And that's why he's so broken over it. It's not just that they're breaking up and stuff like that, because he's very weirdly cordial and crazy with her in the exact next scene. It's very bipolar.
Which, I mean, speaks to writing him as mad rather than, like, or masking as mad.
Yeah.
Rather than, but I mean, when he's being mad to Ophelia, who is he? It's kind of like, okay, but why would Hamlet be trying, I mean, if he's masking as mad for, like, a specific purpose, pretending madness to Ophelia doesn't, because that's a relationship that has grown over years, and she was waiting for you to come back, and she was just maybe going to be queen, and everything was going to be wonderful, but
yeah, and that's
but not now.
Yeah, I think that scene in particular kind of stands out how I could have been a little more concrete with some stuff. Because I internally was playing it as he doesn't want to talk to her. He's freaked out. He was called to speak to her. That's why he's there. But he's not ready to talk to her about things because internally, like, do I tell her about what's going on? And, like, yeah, I talked to my dead dad the other day, and guess what? Your dad's best buddy killed him, my uncle. You want to help me with that? And I kind of thought about it as like, well, I want her in my life, and I want her there, and I want to be with her, but right now is not a good time, and I don't want her involved in what I'm doing for her sake. And she automatically opens up with, I want to give you your letters and stuff back.
Yeah.
And it's, what? Why?
Yeah.
Like, why even have, where'd this come from? Mm-hmm. Like, this isn't the conversation I thought we were going to have. And she kind of goes back and forth because she's playing to them behind the curtain, but also talking to Hamlet truthfully, where she says, oh, they had such sweet words and everything. But the perfume is lost. Like, she has to cover herself for their sake.
And I wondered if Hamlet knew that, or suspected that he was being overheard. I mean, it's kind of like Elsinore is this, like, fishbowl where you don't know who's behind whatever. And
well, the way we did it was sometimes it got swallowed up during all the noise, but Polonius knocked something over backstage, and that's why I snapped and looked at the entrance where they left. And long before the rat line, too. Mm. But during the Ophelia scene, he knocked something over, and sometimes the audience couldn't hear that. But I just tried to play it as though I heard something, or I would wait longer as I was going to make sure you could hear the noise. But I didn't cover it, or covered it too much some nights. Might have been the night you were there too. But that's when he knows somebody's there. And that's the 180 in the conversation.
So,
because that's why he asks, "Where's your father?" And then she says, "At home, my lord." And right there, Hamlet has to grapple with the fact that she just lied to him blatantly. Like, I know you're lying. Because I don't think anybody else but your dad's back there. And maybe Claudius.
And maybe he decides that, okay, this is something I can deal with after, I have to,
But if I'm really mean to you right now and I push you away and try and get you to a nunnery, then you'll at least be safe until this is dealt with. And I can handle that. Even if I'm upset with you lying to me, I see why you're lying to me. I know your dad's got kind of a vice grip on your life kind of thing, like as every woman did back then. Mm-hmm. But I just wanted to play with the levels there where there's a lot of stuff going on internally with Hamlet, and I was trying to filter all that stuff to a point where it was clear what I was trying to feel in the moment, or trying to convey at the very least. And normally I'm a very vocal affected person. I change voices for every show and stuff like that. It's usually part of my character. Mm-hmm. And early on with this show, I decided I just could not do that. The only time I tried doing it early on was during the mad scenes to try and make it more clear. Yeah. And then we decided to make it less clear.
Well, that was the thing. I didn't know if that came from the way you approached the character or the writing. And without having really studied this, it kind of sounds like you have.
Yeah, I've been kind of looking at this for 17 years, I think I've been looking at it.
And Hamlet, if he started out playing mad, it feels like he really became mad or just entered the madness of the situation he found himself in by the end, because it's like, okay, well, dang, I'm just gonna kill everybody.
Well, it's
people are falling left and right, and it's like, oh, goddamn, I'm actually. This was a duel. This was like, okay, they're scoring, and people don't always die at the end of these things, but Claudius made sure that you would.
Well, that was something that...
And then Gertrude did, and then he decided to nope his way out, and...
It's an interesting thing, you talk about the overarching madness of it all. And the way I've always viewed it, and we had a lot of stuff cut out of this show.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously for time. You can't do a 4.5 hour
we would
show.
Have gotten home after midnight.
Yeah, you couldn't do 4.5 hours of Shakespeare in Bismarck, North Dakota. But... the stuff we cut out was stuff that is able to be cut out, as far as I'm concerned. I've read the original one several times, and I've seen several interpretations of it over the years that are the full length. And it was a very good, clean, concise cutting, and I applaud the director for achieving that, because that's a huge undertaking, and he's been racking his brain for a year about it and everything, and he was pretty nervous going into it. We were both nervous going into it, and a lot of our collaboration between each other helped to console that a little.
Well, Aaron had been directing for the longest time. Who took over for this year?
John Clemmel was our director this year. Yeah. Aaron's the artistic director of Capitol Shakespeare as a company, and generally within that wheelhouse, she directs. She had discussed Hamlet over the years, that anytime it's come up, that she doesn't really want to touch it, mm-hmm. and she's not sure how she would want to approach it or attempt to cut it and things like that. And I totally get it, because I don't know how you, because you're not competing with other people and stuff. You don't want to try and compete with Kenneth Branagh's vision of it and stuff. No. But that's kind of the seminal work of Kenneth Branagh and the my prime Hamlet movie or interpretation before our interpretation.
Well, you made it your own, and I didn't get a chance because I had some things written out that were like really way too detailed. I said, screw it. I just want to find out what's going on in there as you were approaching this character. But this was, I thought, one of the best presentations of the character that I'd seen. And the show that you moved through, I thought, presented what needed to be done. You had to do, I mean, like you said, a lot of stuff was collapsed, but you found a voice, it held, and I thought it was strong and consistent throughout because that was fantastic storytelling.
Yeah, the biggest thing that the director and I talked about a lot during the process was my two most recurring notes, or three most, was don't get too angry all the time. You can't always be angry with the character. It's an easy thing for men to feel on stage in particular. It's just a feeling that comes out. But it can't start just, I'm angry. There has to be a reason if you're gonna be angry. It's more about grief than anything. You're grieving. You're not mad at everybody. You're grieving and you're feeling your emotions. And then the main one that I think helped with the storytelling aspect and the conciseness and how it was easily digestible for a lot of people was that always tell the truth. You can't just... A lot of actors just come up and recite lines. It's fine. You can do that. But what is the motivating feeling behind that line? And yeah, that's acting. That's kind of a general thing. But a lot of us lose sight of it over time. And I've kind of lost sight of it over the years. And he kind of helped me pull back in to be like, now you can't go backwards, man. You got to keep this up. Whatever that show just was that we did, you have to tell the truth going forward anytime you do another role. And I was like, yeah, now I kind of get what was going on with me back then. Then I wasn't giving as strong of performances as I would have liked, and I couldn't pinpoint what it was. But that was the biggest note I got from him was always, it's not reading true. You got to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And once I got that into my head, then it started really coming together as a character. And I keep telling people, I'm not even 100% convinced that I knew my lines. I just felt a certain way in a scene and it would come out in response to things. Like I couldn't rehearse the Ophelia scene by myself or even just restating the lines without just getting emotional about it. Like it was weird. I just had this automatic, conditioning to feel a certain way attached to certain words and things like that. And that would ebb and flow and fluctuate throughout the production process and through performances. But the biggest thing that I kept trying to do is find some type of internal feeling or life experience that I can use to motivate these scenes. And anything from women I've dated in the past or how I feel about people in my life or people I've known over the years, like betrayals I've experienced, love I've experienced, things like that. Different types of paternal and maternal figures I've had over the years outside of my family and things like that. And it really helped inspire and inform everything. I had told John at some point during the show, during the production of it, that I have a lot of informed feelings with this show. I really relate to the character. I've been studying this character for like 17 years. I read it in high school, and I've kind of just been waiting to do it. And we never got to do it for so long. And then I think we were doing, it was either Merry Wives or Julius Caesar. They said that this year would be Hamlet. And I went back every summer after our summer show was over and went back and reread Hamlet. And wasn't trying to memorize it or anything because I went into auditions thinking I was going to be Laertes. I thought there was no way Hamlet's been my dream role my whole life since I've discovered Shakespeare and since I started acting. And I discovered Shakespeare first. I didn't start acting until a couple years later, and I kind of just got roped into that. I just had a teacher ask me, hey, can you guys fill in? We had some people drop out of a show, and I've never acted before. Well, you could do this one. I think you guys would be good at it. And I was like, okay. So we did Anne of Green Gables. And I was just a small character in that. But then the acting bug caught me But I've been looking at this so much over the years that I've had a lot of feelings, and I was trying to go into auditions without being partial to it. I wrote down, it's kind of a no-no in theater, but unless you're honest about it. But I said Hamlet or Laertes. And he looked at that and he said, really, nothing else? I said, no, I don't think my heart would be in it either way. And Laertes would be the typecast for me before this show, I think. Because I played Tybalt back in the day. Always the girl's relative that's upset with the main guy. But he told me, he had gave me a couple notes. I went both nights of auditions. He gave me a couple notes at the end of the first night, and he said, if you can come back with these notes taken care of, I think we can do this if you want to do it.
Brilliant.
If you think you can do it. And I was like, good. Okay, cool. I will do that.
That's fantastic. I mean, a lot of guys, actors will go their entire lives without being able to take on that one dream role. And this is, that's astonishing.
Well, and I had talked to him later kind of in confidence, and it was kind of, he was aware that I wanted the role because he had talked to me the summer before. And he said he saw something in my eye that said that I wanted it. But the way I was acting on stage, my performances and stuff, he had a higher standard than I had for myself. And I think based on that standard, he didn't think I could handle it, or we could do it, but it wouldn't be like as great as it wound up coming out.
I think you guys found it, honestly.
I don't know how that happened, but I think I went in really nervous the first night of auditions, and then the second night I was like, no, I just need to do this. And that was the first time he had told me just tell the truth. And just that note, for some reason, just worked the whole run of the show for me in particular.
Awesome.
And I didn't need, other than just like, hey, don't get mad, like, let's pull this back, let's get rid of the antic voice kind of thing, like, don't be don't be a clown about things. Like, just say it straight and stuff like that. But, yeah, I've been thinking and overthinking and reassessing and analyzing and...
Well, and you did. I mean, I did hear Brooke up there, Mr. Brooke, a little bit. I mean, but, I mean, you have to. I mean, you're letting the audience in on this thing that you're doing, but that falls away by the end of the show because...
Yeah. And some of that was unintentional because I didn't even realize I was doing something like my Brooke voice during the show until John mentioned it, and I said, oh, okay, I need to just be a little more conscious about that. I didn't even realize I was doing it. It was just coming out as I was saying my lines.
Well, they were happening at the right place. I mean...
Yeah, so my biggest thing that I wanted to do was make sure, like, people understand this and people feel it and, like, just get something out of it. Really.
No, I really wanted to explore that with you today because that was something that I saw. I really enjoyed this production. I think you guys had excellent weather for it. I was jealous.
Yeah, that went way better than I thought. I don't know how we got off so lucky with the weather.
And I'm perfectly honest, it was just like me trying to, like, just like self-control because I did want to talk to you guys about this, but it's not something, where you can like really get into the weeds in your own character. It's like, I'm not going to go backstage and talk to anybody about anything they're doing right now because this has to continue like this to work. If we explored an order, after opening night, hey, how was that? Let's just get into like, God, what was I doing? I was like, oh my God, now I'm overthinking everything for the rest of the show as well. But I did want to like explore it afterwards, after the fact, to like just say, hey, how was that? Because that was that's a lot to do. I mean, it's a huge character anyway.
It was a definite.
Was it one of the big? It's got to be one of the biggest characters you've taken on.
It is definitely the biggest character I've taken on because I think. In Shakespeare, don't quote me on it, but I think Hamlet's in like the top 3 amounts of lines for a character, even with a cutting like this. Mm-hmm. It's definitely the largest one I've ever done. The only one closest is Puck in Midsummer. I played him back in the day. But I've never been like the title character of something.
And the stakes just are not the same for Puck as they are for Hamlet.
No, Puck, I got to climb around half naked in a tree in goat pants, like, and just be goofy and sound like the Green Goblin from the 90s Spider-Man cartoon.
Like people have studied this show.
This is a little more highbrow, but and I love Midsummer. I would kill to play Puck again and do something different with it.
Or Oberon, or
I'd like to play Oberon.
I wonder if people age out. Like, for example, I would absolutely love to play Trampoline, for example, but I do not think physically I could do it anymore. But I'd love to take on Lloyd, and if I can't take on Lloyd, I can play Selston till I die. But
it's one of those things where I was starting to get worried that we weren't going to get around to Hamlet while I was still young enough to be believable. Kind of thing. I was like, well, I'm going to be like 55, and then we're finally going to do this show.
Well, if Chad's going to be Claudius, you can absolutely play Hamlet.
Yeah, and that was a nice thing, is like everybody was believable at their ages. Even just through body language and portrayal of character. Like, Erin's a little young to be playing my mom, but just her demeanor and everything, like,
she carried herself, presented herself as well as Gertrude. You know, Gertrude is certainly she's more than just a person on the stage, but she if you present her well, I think that people can.
And I think she knocked it out of the park. Like, I'm pretty sure our audition together in that scene got us our roles.
She just played Aunt Augusta, so I mean, goodness, she's not. She could.
She knocked it out of the park, though. I was baffled that we got that deep with it and just like didn't make it weird, or like a lot of people want to make it like a Oedipedal type thing, and I don't like that. I don't like it. Not everybody's like that, and that's not how you need to interpret every show. It's just, this is my mom. She married my uncle, and he killed my dad. Like, I don't want to kill my mom, but she needs to like see that something's going on here, kind of thing. But and we have a very good working relationship together through the company with building things when taking turns with stuff like that and set build days. And I went from being just Tybalt and Romeo and Juliet to being our set builder for the last several years now. Basically through that connection and through the connections with the board and on a personal level, not just like, oh, I know these people, I can move up in the world kind of thing, like Polonius, but like a genuine, I love this company so much, and I just, like, my life would not be the same without it. And I can't even guarantee I would still be here without this company. Whether that be not in town or at all, I don't know. This company has helped me a lot. Yeah, I've invested a lot of my life and my soul into this company, and I've grown to love it like a second family and another home for me.
Fantastic.
It's very important in my life. I haven't found many things that are that important.
Truly insightful, Derek. Thank you. As I said, I also had a chance to chat with Ophelia as well. Schatzy?
My name is Schatzy Eichmann. I have been involved with the Capitol Shakespeare Company here in the Bisman area for the last 3 years. Merry Wives was my first.
Really?
Was my first Shakespeare one, but I guess the winter show before that, we did Death of a Salesman that same year. And
that was really intense.
That was technically my first one, yeah. But in the Shakespeare outside theater world, Merry Wives, 3 summers ago was my first one.
Wow, welcome. Yeah. That was that was a pretty good introduction.
We met as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that was I come in and I think everybody's been there for years because it was my first one too. So.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, and I had no idea. I felt the same way. I felt like everyone already knew each other and had done it before, but it's also very welcoming at the same time because I didn't feel uncomfortable, that being my first Shakespeare show.
And then I didn't think it was your first acting because it felt like you came to the stage with a lot of presence. Have you been doing a lot of acting?
Yes, so I actually did study musical theater, which included, acting, singing, dancing, everything that has to do with theater in New York for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
they do some of that there.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, and then I stayed there and auditioned for things for a year and a half after that, and then kind of like COVID was starting, and it was just kind of time for me to leave. So I came back to North Dakota, and my parents had just moved to Bismarck, so that's why I moved to Bismarck.
Oh, well,
yeah.
And so when you were you saw the opportunity was available and decided it was something that you wanted to branch into, because musical theater and Shakespeare, there's a little overlay, but not a lot.
Yeah, and I did work on Shakespeare in school. We had a class called Voice Production and Speech, which is mostly connecting to your body and being aware of it, but also we worked on a lot of classical pieces, which included Shakespeare. So I had said it out loud, but it was always like, we all memorized one monologue from Julius Caesar. It wasn't like specific to each person necessarily, and I didn't have to seek out those monologues, so I didn't like find the content myself. It was more like an assignment that everybody had to do. But they kind of did give us a good like steps of how to approach Shakespeare if you ever get the opportunity to do it.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
And this, well, I mean, it might have been informed how natural it seemed when you did walk into this. But
well, thank you. It was very scary, though.
Nurse Quickly to Ophelia that's a pretty broad range.
Yeah.
Talk to me about finding that character.
Ophelia?
Yeah.
Quickly? Okay. So Ophelia was really fun to work on. I found myself doing a lot of research just on Hamlet as a whole, but specifically on Ophelia because that's who I was focusing on. It was because Hamlet was my first famous Shakespeare show. Merry Wives is fun, and Love's Labour's Lost was fun as well. But this was the first one where everybody knew the story. So I did feel like there was that sort of responsibility to be aware of productions that have come before, people's different ideas and feelings towards the show, just to kind of get more of a broader idea of it before going in that I didn't necessarily do with Merry Wives and Love's Labour's Lost, because even for me those stories were new. Oh, yeah, and I knew the audience necessarily probably didn't know it since they were a kid.
And right? Then comedies are by their nature
right.
lighter.
And those two were comedies. That was the other difference, and I definitely do feel more comfortable in a comedy than I do in a drama, but I basically just watched all the YouTube videos that were available of Ophelia's and people's... There's a bunch, yeah. I don't think I watched them all, but I definitely watched quite a few, because I didn't necessarily want to watch people acting as Ophelia. I more wanted to watch, like, people who had read Hamlet and, like, their thoughts on the characters and who the characters play in the story and why their storyline is a part of the plot and how it affects the end, basically.
Sort of approaching it as this, which the part it plays in the storytelling as a whole.
Right, yeah. Because I think as any actor, you do have that responsibility to sort of have an awareness of who your character is in the story. And I think it was so much fun to do all that research. Like, I really did have a really good time working on Ophelia. And
how long did you have with the production? When did the rehearsal start?
Yeah, I think we auditioned towards the end of May. And I think there was a week of May where we had rehearsal. So maybe a little over 8 weeks. Yeah, probably. Maybe 9.
That's a good amount of time to take with a play this intense.
And absolutely.
I know that the director had it was boiled down necessarily from First Folio, but it really hit all of the points that are the familiar points of storytelling. Now, unfortunately, that seems to maybe you lose. The things that you lose are probably like where you would develop Ophelia a little bit more, because I remember about 4 main appearances, and you had a lot of transition points to craft and present in the just from her introduction with Polonius and Laertes, and then to the conversation with Hamlet, the handoff of but where there's also some intrigue because Polonius and Claes are being overheard, and then to your reaction to learning of your father's death and talk to me about shape. How did you shape each of those appearances? Because they are each fairly iconic points for the character.
I think throughout the whole rehearsal process, I did keep going back to not our script, but Hamlet as a whole, because a lot of Ophelia's lines were, I mean, all of us characters had lines that were cut, but especially the scene where she comes in frightened because Hamlet just walked into her room and was like disheveled and it scared her. There's a whole monologue where she explains his appearance, and I didn't have that, but I needed that information to be able to convey how freaky it was that he showed up. And I think all of us went back to, because the director kept telling us too, he was like, go back to the original script if something doesn't make sense, and then we'll just have to make it make sense in our cut that we have, because we don't have 3.5 hours to do this. Well, we did, but
it's
right.
It's already a long play, and I think that you want people to get home. I mean,
right.
The sun sets at some point, and
we don't have lights, so. But I think in regards to your question about shaping each appearance on stage, I think it just kind of came naturally, because the first time Ophelia's on stage, she doesn't talk. She's part of the party. She's the party goers. And there was a thing where during rehearsal, I just would like lurk until Derek looked at me, and then until Hamlet looked at me, and then we'd have a cute little moment of they know each other. I just wanted the audience to know that they have an existing established relationship, because you don't get that. Like, you never get their love together on stage, really. Like, you get
you didn't see the other 5 years, or like all the time that they'd spent where she's the daughter of the king's proconsul, and this relationship had probably been developing for years. He goes off to college, and obviously the tragedy that he's walking back into, losing his father. And there's probably a version of this play where you guys actually could bond over this, but because Elsinore is such a creepy, weird, I mean, and it's all Claudius's fault, but I mean, because of all of the castle, the palace intrigue, we are necessarily only seeing this relationship through the prism of, okay, I've got to pretend to be mad, but as the play progresses, it feels like the situation just makes it, like he actually becomes mad, and then your madness is something that I wonder, it feels like this play is the one where Shakespeare actually explores some of this more than others, and where, like, he explores the nature of death, the church's, the education of, like, who can be buried where and that kind of thing, and it's like, well, this is social comment on top of, like, palace intrigue, but also human hearts. I mean, actual relationship between people. So that's a lot to try to explore in 9 weeks.
And it is devastating for her. And I think that's why towards the end, she just knows that she's basically nothing now. And there's no reason to pretend like there is something to fight for. So that's kind of why, in my mind, why she gave up. And I think every actor naturally does this, but you try to find your own characteristics in your characters. And the thing that I really could relate to with Ophelia, because she is one of the, I would say, quote, like, weaker women characters in Shakespeare. And I think that is on purpose. I don't think it was
she does seem more defined by negative space than anything else.
And in my mind, she's so much of a people pleaser that she just kind of gets lost in who she is, and then she's confused, and then the only thing she knows how and what to do is to try to make everyone happy. And when that starts not happening and not happening and not happening, then she just totally loses it.
I don't have a place in this world, and no, that's a solid approach on that character.
Yeah, because Juan and I had the conversation. Juan played Polonius, my father. And he was like, I'm trying to understand, like, why, in your opinion, like, why does Ophelia lose, like, why does she go mad when her father dies? Her father's not nice to her. Like, he just barks orders at her. He doesn't really treat her nice. He uses her to gain
information.
I mean, Ophelia really is more of an object to everybody than a person, because everybody uses her in some way, shape, or form throughout the show. And I said, because I had to think about it and I had to justify why she gets so devastated by her father's death. And I said to Polonius, one, I said, I think, in my opinion, she doesn't know love any other way other than people using her. She thinks that's what love is.
And also, if you're talking about like the social commentary, the position of women in Elizabethan England, you're probably looking at something. Okay, well now I'm entirely undefined because I have this relationship I'd been pursuing all of my life is he is flaked completely, and also now I don't even have the protection of my father in this brutalist
and
situation.
Her brother's still gone.
Her brother's still gone. And
so without a man, you don't really, in that time, you didn't really have a social standing anymore.
Or she could just have been like feeling the weight of her vulnerability at that point. So it's and she maybe could have stayed. I'm sure they wouldn't have thrown her to the streets unless she... I don't know what she would have had to do to get thrown to the streets, but I think she just convinces herself that she's going to the point where she kind of just makes it happen. And what would happen if, I don't know who feels liable for, the reason that your father's killed is because he was spying on any potential conversation going on in the Queen's bedroom, which, how the frig often does that happen?
Right.
Get out of... What are you doing back there?
Yes.
What, do you got a little table?
Well, and it's the second time you see on stage Polonius spying. And
it is just this is why he's a valuable consul, because he can actually provide intelligence on things that Claudius isn't going to know about. But also, it's there's official and then there's personal, and you're getting that is just.
And I think the way
you're spying on Hamlet for Claudius, and it's
I think the way our production did it was Hamlet thought it was Claudius, and then was like, oh no.
As a rat?
That was not Claudius.
Which, in terms of liability, it'd be like, okay, Ophelia, you can stay here as long as you absolutely need to. We're sorry about that.
Yeah. Sorry your boyfriend killed your dad. I hate to break it to you.
Which is, not an uncommon situation in the Shakespeare tragedy. But, it feels like you had a lot as a character, your character had a lot to deal with and to process, and ultimately, the weight of it was too much, and determined. And there'd be a way for it to look like an accident, and people would probably have approached it as that's a tragedy, or goodness, that happened while all this other stuff was happening. But it's there was an assignment of blame that seemed really, the gravekeeper, for instance, seemed really ready to, oh, no, she was clearly at fault. It's well, goodness, you make them wear these, pounds of dresses wherever they go, and she falls in the water. What the hell else is going to happen to her? But,
and it's...
how much volition a person has.
Right.
And
it's interesting, too, because when...
Do you feel like Ophelia would have killed herself? Do you feel like that was a good read on the situation?
Right, yeah. That's actually what I was just going to kind of touch on, is I don't feel like she intended to kill herself, because the way Gertrude has a whole monologue about watching her fall from a tree into the water, and Ophelia keeps singing, which might be the indication as to she purposefully did it, but anyway... She says...
Or killed by her own madness.
Right. Well, she was in the tree. She fell from the tree into the water. She kept singing, but because her dresses were so heavy, by the time they got wet, she couldn't even try to save herself. So I always thought, I always thought before I had done this show that it was for sure, like, Ophelia did this on purpose. And after doing the show, I'm like, I don't know if that's true. Like, in my take on the character, I didn't feel like she did. I think it was an accident. But it is interesting how the other characters are just so quick to cast this damning judgment on her and not want to give her a proper grave, not want to put her in the cemetery. Like, the king had to pull some strings to get her buried in the cemetery. And the only reason he did is because he felt bad that his nephew/son had killed her dad. Right? Yeah. So, I don't know. I thought that was interesting. And looking into it, it did seem a little more up in the air than I initially thought going in.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of death in Hamlet too. Yes. So it's like it's like something that happens off stage, but it's also, the description is, very poetic. So it feels like there's, the audience gets some ownership of that, or they get to have that vision in their head of what happened. So, and they can all decide themselves. But I think that probably, again, social commentary, probably there's a lot of death at a time when they poor people that just goes unexplored or unnoticed, or nobody's really pays a lot of attention to.
And it does seem like
because it's happened in the context of the palace.
Right. And it does seem like she is the innocent and sweet character, if that makes sense too.
No, it's how she's written. It feels like
so. It just adds to the tragedy that this happened to her, and that's how it ended.
That while she's processing this loss and maybe figuring out what's going to be next, that she falls, but isn't even like that. That isn't the priority for her right now. I got to like figure out what's going on in my life now. And it's like, oh, well, not very much more now.
She's like, whoops.
Oops. But yeah, I mean, you would think that with volition that there'd be a little bit more that, the character, her madness seems almost more pronounced than Hamlet's, because he tells the audience that he's going to mask madness to find out information, whereas she doesn't have any, like, there's no guile behind it. It's something that says, oh my God, this is just my life now.
I don't think the thought ever occurs to her to try to deceive or to lie. And that's coming from, I would say, me trying to put things that make sense to me into the character I'm playing. Like, I'm not really
duplicitous.
I feel like I'm an honest person. I really do struggle to lie. What you think, an actor, they're probably good at lying. That's not me. But, and just trying to find my own traits in the character. So I felt like that was definitely something I connected to with Ophelia, and also the people-pleasing aspect. So it's just kind of fun to look into characters and see, like, if this were my life, like, how would I react? How would I react to someone I love barging into my room, looking disheveled at a time where people did not look disheveled unless they were crazy? And then I run to my dad and I say, what just happened? And then he says, oh, talk to Hamlet. And then she talks to Hamlet, and it does not go how she thought it was going to go. So, yeah. Yeah,
the situation is kind of weird. Talk to me about this seems like just a big character to take on. Is this one of the largest characters you've attempted? Because you did really well. I mean, just as an audience member, I felt the whole production was really strong. One of the stronger Hamlets I've seen, and I thought that part of that was because the cast was, you, Aaron, Derek, good God,
thank you.
And I hadn't noticed anyone, but I thought that I forgot Liarity's name.
Austin.
Flemmer.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Names. But, I thought that you guys did a really good production.
I think everyone definitely worked really hard on it, because we knew it was such a big show. And, that, again, I think we all felt the responsibility that everybody already knows the show. And I think that's just like was an extra layer that kind of motivated everybody to really give it their all, which everybody involved, I don't think they would not have given their all. But it's just, like I said, having such a iconic and well-known show just kind of...
And I needed to mention Chad, too, because, my God.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody did.
Yes.
I mean, you
could list the whole cast.
Strong ensemble and strong approach to it. Clearly, everyone was taking it seriously. And
yes.
I had seen Richard III a few years ago, and they, it's a big production and a lot of moving parts, and so trying to present all of that in like a stage situation where your lighting is not something you control, where your sound is not always something you control. So it all comes together really well, I think. Cap Shakes does a good job. I was going to ask if you had, since you've been involved for 3 years, you've probably, any advice people would, for if they were interested in being involved in community theater, is there, like, Cap Shakes is one, seems to be pretty welcoming.
Right. Yeah, if you are in the Bisman area, I would suggest going on Facebook, because that's where I think most places post their auditions. So I would go to Facebook. The community theaters in our town are Capitol Shakespeare, Dakota Stage, True North, and BSC does allow community members to audition. It's just kind of students get first priority, but they also are welcome to community members. And definitely Capitol Shakespeare posts their auditions, and they're pretty good at keeping their website up to date too, I believe.
And they've got 2 shows a year now with the winter shows. They do the winter shows. So, and they always do classical stuff. So if you want to challenge yourself, definitely check out Capitol Shakespeare. And all of us are so, I think everybody's rooting for you. It's intimidating to start Shakespeare, but I think you are entering into a good community, and I know most people involved are so willing to help, give you resources. If you have any specific questions, guide you to the person who can help you out the most. Mm-hmm. So that's what I know of the Bisman community. And then Aaron was directing Merry Wives. John was directing Hamlet.
Yes. Yeah.
And we had so good informed people.
Yes.
Who've been with the group for a long time, and they can absolutely give insight on how to approach it. Oh, excellent. No, I just wanted to make sure that I had included. Was there anything that I forgot to ask that you would want to say about the show or putting that together?
I would like to give Aaron credit for the songs, because when you get Hamlet, you just get words. So during the Mad Scene, when I was singing those songs, we had to come up with that.
Oh, okay.
So that's a little fun fact. And Erin was very kind, and she wrote out the songs on sheet music. And then some of it I tweaked a little bit just because I had to be jumping around and singing at the same time at some point. So, but I think both of us definitely looked up as time period specific as possible music. Excellent. to kind of get the general gist of it. So yeah, the Mad songs were a lot of fun, and I will always remember them.
Oh, fantastic. No, thank you.
Thank you, Derek and Schatzy. Thank you so much, both of you, for sharing your time and insights on these complex and complicated creations. Well done.
I associate many things with many things.
Cross Connection. In Cross Connections, I can tie the great performances production of Hamlet in the current collection to my Jocelyn Murph Studios Mystical Centers of my Media Collection Challenge. Well, easiest is probably through Samuel L. Jackson's appearance as the ghost of Hamlet's father. Jackson appeared as Nick Fury in The Avengers, written and directed by Joss Whedon. That's one immediate tie. He also appears in Pulp Fiction, Die Hard, Unbreakable, Split, and Glass, playing characters across from Bruce Willis, who's in Friends with Matthew Perry of Studio 60 on Sunset Strip. the title character, and Hudson Hawk with Sandra Bernhard and her multiple Ryan Murphy production credits. So, the ties for Hamlet are already multiple, close, and direct, but I want to see if I can make the tie to my media collection through the title character, not just the most famous and prolific person of the cast. In taking on Hamlet, Adam Blinkson Wood navigated an already complicated and exhaustively examined character, while deftly layering hip-hop, soul, and current sensibilities. So to tell you a tale, God's cry, that would make the gods cry. Exploring an, of necessity, political figure against landscape strewn with political wreckage, the Stacey Abrams lost prominent. Also, a house we see broken, divided, illustrating what happens to nations, circumstances when craven pretenders ascend to leadership, potential race explorations with Polonius, Laertes, and Ophelia being white, while the royal family was black. Even just the weaving of music and art into the storytelling, this work was very well done. Well, Adam Blinkson Wood is closer to the mystical centers of my media collection than I could ever have anticipated. First credit I clicked to, it's kind of a funny story. From 2010, he appeared across from Lauren Graham, who was actually in Studio 60 of the Sunset Strip, so that's a close tie right there. Lauren Graham was also in Parenthood with Peter Krause from 6 Feet Under, and Go On with the late Matthew Perry from, again, right there, Studio 60, so she represents multiple ties in her own right. And since it was the feature, I should pull up my connections for Hamlet, too. I explored lead actor Steve Coogan's son when the show first turned up in my cataloging efforts in episodes 88 and 89, but I mostly recall being flummoxed. He was in so many things and created so many characters I'd never heard of, and beyond the central conceit of his production, I felt like he was indeed a pretty good argument for alternate timelines. But not completely. Steve Coogan has intersected with this timeline in one way I can absolutely confirm. He's not credited, all the more reason to cue the X-Files theme. But in episode 77, I let you know what Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly's execrable take on Holmes and Watson. From that episode, I decided to watch Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly's 2018 Holmes and Watson, based perhaps on names they heard someone say once. Well, he was in that with Will Ferrell, who has been in absolutely everything with absolutely everyone, but quickest is probably The Office with Rainn Wilson from 6 Feet Under. Also in Hamlet 2, Catherine Keener was in Get Out with Bradley Whitford of Studio 60, who was also in the Joss Whedon production Cabin in the Woods, and David Arquette was in Joss Whedon's Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and the supporting Hamlet 2 cameo Amy Poehler was in Parks and Rec, also with Bradley Whitford. So, as it turns out in this version of reality, I'm not even going to mention Will Ferrell's Holmes and Watson, because we've got much closer and much better ties without them, and I notice he's got a much better film for us to watch and coming out soon called Will and Harper. Enjoy. Other cross-connections we found. Well, an appearance by Jane Atkinson in a 5th season episode of Criminal Minds set me looking for updates on Mandy Patinkin's vehicle Death and Other Details, in which she played Values matriarch Catherine. To my dismay, I discovered it had been cancelled. Damn. Now we'll never know what happened to those tree-faring corpses in the finale, which, to my mind, shades of Blair Witch by way of Harper's Island, am I right? I encountered a few appearances by Buffy alumni in this set, including Nicholas Brendan, also in that same 5th season episode of Criminal Minds. Mark Blucas appeared in the 2nd season episode of Castle, and technically a Firefly alumnus, Mark A. Shepard, appeared as a spectral serial killer in a 1st season episode of Medium from this set. A 2nd season episode of Medium also featured a much younger Rami Malek, and one from its 1st season saw Dean Norris of Breaking Bad, which pretty cool, I thought. I mentioned Mandy Patinkin up there, and Dead Like Me co-star Jasmine Guy appeared in another supernatural series, The Vampire Diaries. Speaking of otherworldly adventures, a 2nd season Desperate Housewives featured Ridge Kniep as a paperboy, who also appeared a couple times as young Dean Winchester, Supernatural. And in more prosaic matters, a 2nd season Grey's Anatomy welcomed Loretta Devine of Eli Stone as Dr. Weber's wife, with appearances by Catherine Houston and introducing Kate Walsh in 1st season episodes of Grey's Anatomy. Shifting focus to Bones, a 5th season Christmas-themed episode titled The Goop on the Girl featured Ryan O'Neal as Max Keenan, father of writer, forensic anthropologist, and title character Tempest Bones Brennan, played by Emily Deschanel. This episode featured her sister, Zoe, across from Emily as long-lost relative, and this line from Bones' father: "You're cousins from cousins, but look at that resemblance. You're practically sisters." This observation comes up again when Angel alum David Boreanaz as FBI Special Agent Celia Booth encounters them at Bones' home. Closing out this segment, I wanted to highlight Melinda Page Hamilton, who appears as Golden Thread in my collection. Golden Thread. Who also showed up in that episode of Bones, the Goodbye Girl. Hamilton appeared as Anna Draper in Mad Men. She appeared in Star Trek Enterprise, the Tim Minear production of Miracles. Numbers, Nip Tuck, Desperate Housewives, the Jeff Goldblum vehicle, Reigns. She was in Criminal Minds, The Closer, Castle. Oh, this is interesting. She was in Grey's Anatomy and its spin-off Private Practice as different characters appearing within a season of each other. Wild. I mentioned Bones up there. She was in HBO productions of True Blood and Big Love, and she was in The Glades and Mrs. America. Between working with Nathan Fillion and Castle with David Boreanaz and Bones, both of Joss Whedon production, and actually in the Ryan Murphy production of Nip Tuck, Melinda Page Hamilton has close ties to shows at the mystical center of my media collection and makes many other appearances throughout my collection. Awesome.
Diving into my classic collection.
My classic collection of VHS to DVD transfers, this time, as I mentioned, covered discs 1626 through 1650, and a significant portion of this set was dedicated to transfers, where I devoted entire VHS tapes to one show or another. This installment featured sets of Season 1 episodes of Medium, Season 1 episodes of Grey's Anatomy, Season 16, 17 episodes of The Simpsons, a run of second season Rescue Me's, and a bunch of Season 1 episodes of Vampire Diaries. This last set was kind of cool. I mean, not for the teen drama, because 39-year-old me was clearly over all that, but one cool music cue from the Vampire Diaries was Sleep Alone by Bat for Lashes. This dreamy-driven 2009 release I'd clearly missed it the first time around, but I had to add it to my collection because, wow, truly enjoyed encountering this song in that show. I did and did not watch these runs, these dedicated tape transfers, while cataloging them. On one hand, I wanted to make sure each entry was what I said it was. I didn't want to assume the next episode was the next one just because it was, well, next. I recorded a lot of stuff over the time period, and stray episodes show up all over the place. Also, damn, but Grey's Anatomy hit the ground running. So much happened over the course of these tightly plotted, beautifully cast, beautifully photographed first season productions. I found myself sucked right back into the storylines. Show creator Shonda Rhimes is a go-around genius. I don't care who knows it. I'll absolutely be revisiting these for future viewing. Same goes for Medium. I so enjoyed the episode-to-episode development of the first season of the show. Patricia Arquette is incredible anyway, and watching her introduce us to the title character here in her extraordinary life was a lot of fun. There were a couple short runs in here, too. I had a couple back-to-back episodes of third season Arrested Development, Dollhouse, Brothers and Sisters, and sixth season episodes of The Office. The Office were the ones with Scott's Tots, the scholarships that never came to be, and the Secret Santa one with Phyllis and Michael as dueling Santas. The Arrested Developments were third season ones featuring Charlize Theron as Rita, charming free spirit with something to hide, and these fourth season productions of Brothers and Sisters in here were further proof that I'll watch Sally Field and Rachel Griffiths and damn near anything, because wow, was it getting ridiculous. I mentioned Jasmine Guy's appearance in Vampire Diaries. I was intrigued to find the feature production of Dead Like Me, Life After Death in here. I'll definitely have to circle back to that one sometime. And, well, if I'm mentioning this, I'll mention that 2009, there was a lot of attention to Snoop Dogg reference to the Winter Olympics. And 15 years later, here he is helping promote the Summer Olympics in Paris. That's kind of neat. But also, Powerade had this commercial with a bunch of truly bizarre competitive sports, including big wheel racing, adults on those little plastic trikes, but now resized for adult competitors. Also, race on treadmills at boxing ring where people are walking on their hands in handstands. They had people launched from catapults through and into goalposts. All of these with prep work make look like legitimate sports people totally do, all over classical music. Truly bizarre. I've included the link to that commercial in my show notes. You can check that out. Speaking of odd commercials, the first season of Kitchen Confidential on Fox had this unique promotional tie-in where entire episodes, I guess, were streaming on MySpace. I saw this ad on disc 1636, airing during a third season episode of Arrested Development in November of 2005, so I guess they were trying to make that a thing. And on disc 1637, ahead of the second season episode of Medium I was archiving on purpose. I've archived the last moments of the third season episode of Las Vegas, a series I was not recording, titled Everything Old Is You Again. The scene features a few seconds of a ballroom full of dancers dancing the twist, including a prominent downstage misstep, which I guess they didn't want to take another run at. Then in the closing credits, they were promoting Pretty Vegas by In Excess, which was apparently featured in the episode, and which I also featured in episode 11 of Sister Podcast, VideoFuzzy, the soundtrack. That was pretty cool. Oh, it also looked like the following week's episode was going to feature Chris Angel, so, ooh, fun to discover how many connections are possible through just a few seconds of shows I wasn't even watching. Wild.
Checking out my current collection.
In my current direct-to-digital collection, I recently acquired a few series, which I've in the past mentioned having had a few difficulties. I recall the problems I had even recording the sci-fi production of The Magician. Sometimes the channel refusing to re-air the productions, or when they started doing that again, I missed and scrambled to catch up, streaming a few of the episodes and the issues that raised. I once aimed my camera phone at my computer screen so as to archive a production, which is as unpleasant to rewatch and listen to as you can quite easily imagine. Well, I clicked around and ordered. Now I own the box set, which means once I do get around to rewatching this show, I'll have a much cleaner, better organized copy of this phenomenal storytelling that I could hope to have archived otherwise. Same with Warehouse 13. There were vast chunks of this production unavailable to me because it aired while I was moving, hence not archived. And I discovered that I had not been archiving the Netflix production of Umbrella Academy, which I enjoyed all the first 3 seasons. I can't wait to watch more of this 4th and final season. I don't have all of those yet, but I did buy seasons 1 and 2. And when Better Call Saul returned from COVID hiatus, I recall lamenting the first 2 seasons had aired during my media dark ages, and since the show was returning from more than a year off, it had been nice if they'd been able to re-air those episodes. Well, they never did, but I was happy to discover these episodes were available via streaming service, and I've since managed to catch up to my current collection. Speaking of recent media acquisitions.
Now on VideoFuzzy, a fond reflection.
Well, first, I want to thank everyone for their patience with me in putting these thoughts together. I've been motivated because I wanted to get the information out about my, as of this posting, still upcoming production of True North's theater, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. More immediately, however, this summer we said goodbye to my mom. While going through her effects, I discovered a box set of Rodgers and Hammerstein productions, beautifully remastered collector's editions of South Pacific, Oklahoma, The King and I, State Fair, Carousel, and The Sound of Music, 50th and 60th anniversary editions among them. I have not opened these. I do want to sit with them, take time with them, explore and enjoy, yes, some true camp Americana. There's been little time for such reflection, enjoyment, and memories while I'm prepping Ginny Wolfe for the stage. Even this is meaningful to me, however. The sweater I'm pulling onto my body, both of us a dozen years older now, is the same one my parents bought for me when I walked this role in Minot back in 2011. Having said goodbye to my dad a year ago this week, I've dedicated my performance in this production to their memory. Both of theirs. Apart from costuming, my folks supported my efforts in community theater in many ways over the years. In my eulogy and in a photo collage I gathered, I recalled my mom's support of my roles going back to my Laser Wolf and Fiddler on the Roof. And a few minutes ago up there I included a scrap of Rigoletto, piano music my mom recorded for me when I was directing The Importance of Being Earnest back in 2001. The opening scene of that production features Algernon Moncrief picking out a melody on an offstage piano. I asked my mom to play the passage, but inexpertly, with hesitation. What you heard up there was her very first take. Exactly what we needed. Her love and support of me over the years. My mother and father, truly, got me through some seriously rough times sometimes. I miss her heart, her spirit. Thank you, Mom, for everything. Thank you both. In other recordings, I'm sure I have The Princess Bride in here already. I know I had Central Intelligence somewhere. And yep, I preserved a few of the highlights from the DNC already weeks ago now, and a whole lot of classic Doctor Who I've been enjoying, but perfectly honest, between saying goodbye and readying this production, not to mention this production, this summer's been a lot. Even the quick heads up I included around the 49-minute mark in episode 12 VideoFuzzy, the soundtrack titled Hiding Behind the Moon. I knew I had this piano passage somewhere. I'd actually made reference to it back in episode 17 of this production, back in 2018. That episode titled Enjoying a Few Finales, and I was glad to find it in time to share it here and put it in this kind of context to celebrate her memory and say goodbye. Thank you, Mom. The Queen carouses to thy fortune, flights of angels, and, in the words of Yulbrenner, etc., etc., etc. And, in the words of Dottie Otley, off I go at last. I want to thank Capitol Shakespeare actors Pich and Schatzy Eichmann for sharing their time and fascinating insights into the roles they took on this summer. Thank you both so much. Thank you all for checking out my video cataloging project. You can check out my catalog listing along with audio links at VideoFuzzy.blogspot.com. Past episodes, add, follow, or subscribe to VideoFuzzy wherever you get podcasts. And if you get a chance, check out my VideoFuzzy, the soundtrack entries as well. Feedback is always appreciated. You can contact me through my blog or podcast sites via email to tjaman1970@yahoo.com or through my VideoFuzzy pages on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. For VideoFuzzy, I'm Terry J. Aman. Happy viewing. It might be amazing, it might just be scuzzy. We'll find it together on VideoFuzzy.